This is Why Am I a Mets Fan? A podcast hosted by Samantha Croston and Ashley Wenskoski.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into another edition of the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston, and we are two Syracuse-based sports reporters with a packed episode for you all today. Luis Robert Jr. signing with the Mets. Bo Bichette being announced as a New York Met, and Cody Bellinger off to the Yankees. Hi, Ashley. How are we doing?
Cody Bellinger and the Yankees made up, and the Mets decided to start making some moves. We've been so desperate all winter long for the Mets to get it rolling, and they've finally done that. The big bombshell, the passing bomb last night. Sorry we didn't do another late night episode for you guys, but what can you? I mean, the Mets, they are only making moves at midnight. You know what I mean? We gotta break it up here a little bit.
And it's like nothing, and then it's like a million moves at a time.
Jeff Passan, I need to know more into Jeff Passan's like life. You know, does he ever go to sleep? I'm not sure. Anyway. The Mets get Luis Robert Jr. from the White Sox, and they give up pretty much nothing. I know people loved LuisAngel Acuna. I know there's going to be some Mets fans that are upset about giving him up. I know you said that he wasn't really a piece that you wanted to part with. But for what this trade is, I am all for it. It is low risk, high reward. I mean, Luis Robert is a guy, obviously he's had a couple of down years. David Stearns is essentially betting $20 million that he's going to return to his 2023 form, but gives you an elite glove in center field all of a sudden, gives you pop, gives you speed, gives you depth to the lineup at a pretty low price.
Definitely a low price. According to Jeff Passan, as Ashley mentioned, it's LuisAngel Acuna and right-handed pitcher Truman Pauley, who the White Sox receive. I'm going to be honest, I was listening to Wardy earlier today. This is a guy who is pumping out Mets content all the time, so if you're interested in Mets content, definitely check him out. He even goes, I don't even know who Truman Pauley is, and I've been covering this for 5 years.
Yeah, he's like not even on the top 30 prospects
Exactly.
list. Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing for people to understand. This is not somebody who, again, doesn't mean that this guy couldn't end up being some breakout star, but the point is he isn't proven yet. So as far as we're concerned, as people who cover the Mets, that's not giving up much. Also, to your point, listen, Acuna was doing well this offseason, so let's just give him some credit. But I think that if you're Acuna, you might actually feel okay about something like this. He can go make a bigger splash somewhere else. He could be probably an everyday piece for the White Sox. I mean, this is actually a decent deal for him. On the other side of it, to your point, I think there's a lot to talk about when you're talking about Lou Rob. This is a guy who, like you mentioned, defensively brings a lot to the table. And that is something that Stearns has been saying this offseason. That was his sort of calling card, right? The Mets' identity was going to be that they were a good defensive team. But I also think offensively, there were some questions there. This is a guy who had some injuries in the past few seasons, a guy who had a breakout 2023 season, damn near 40 home runs, but then dropped off a little bit as far as his bat was concerned. That being said, I think if you're a Mets fan, one good way to think about this is, what did you have before him? And the option was what? Tyrone Taylor, who at times last year couldn't hit anything. Then you have a guy like Luis Robert Jr., who has tremendous upside. And I think that's the key thing to focus in on here.
It's low risk, high reward. You know, I agree with you that obviously it improves what they had before. All of a sudden, your outfield defense looks better, your lineup depth looks better, and your potential for power looks better. I mean, yeah, Robert obviously had 38 home runs in 2023. That was really the big year for him, 80 RBI. But at worst, what? He brings some speed to the table as well. At worst, what? He steals bases, he hits maybe 20 home runs, and he gives you like 70 RBI for $20 million a year. I don't really think that's the worst thing, especially when you're seeing the very high average annual value that some of these other free agents are getting. I think it's sort of a perfect fit because I also think that in Chicago, you know, he's been a White Sox. What do they say over there? I don't know. He's been a White Sox since he broke into the league. Singular of White Sox, anyone? Since he broke into the league. And I really think it's a situation where obviously he struggled with injury, he struggled with a few things, but I think this guy needs a change of scenery. And I think if you're Lou Bob coming to New York and having the opportunity to all of a sudden hit behind Juan Soto in the lineup and have the protection of a lineup that includes Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Bo Bichette, now you're staring a real bounce back campaign, I think, in the face if you're Lou Bob. I think if you are personally a part of his camp, it makes complete and total sense, and you're probably thrilled by this trade. I think it's a good fit. I think it makes sense for both pieces. I mean, you know, you mentioned LuisAngel Acuna. It's a loss, but he didn't really ever seem to have a place on this team. I'm not saying he's not going to go somewhere. Maybe it's with the White Sox and become an everyday player and become a guy who steals bases and is a, you know, defensive big piece to the puzzle somewhere. But it just felt like with the amount of infielders that this team has, with the depth that they do have in some regards in the minor league, it felt like Acuna was constantly going to waver in that quadruple A player area for the Mets. And I honestly, like you said, am happy to see him go to a place where he might be able to get more playing time.
Understand something for a guy like Lou Bob. This is a guy who, in that 2023 season, right, close to 40 home runs, excellent defense, and the White Sox were a 500 team.
Yeah.
To quote Wardy, because I thought this was hilarious, he said, Lou Bob wouldn't know success if it slapped him in the face. I think that's hysterical because it's so true. It's like if you are on a team where you're having these tremendous performances and you're really not having any taste of what real success looks like from a team standpoint, how frustrating that must be. How defeating. And I could see where that could maybe be a contributing factor to slumps or could be a reason why he isn't performing so well at the plate. When you have, to your point, a lineup like the one that the Mets are about to have, hell, this guy could be hitting 7th, 8th. Who cares? You know what I mean? If he has an opportunity to be successful here in a bigger market, a chance to be on a playoff team, I completely agree with you. That feels like a recipe to get back to where you were before. And the reality of the situation is we don't know whether or not this trade is going to pay off. That's the same thing with every trade. The point is, you know what a guy like this is capable of because we've already seen it and he's already proven it at the MLB level. So it means he has that potential to do something like that again.
Yeah, not to even mention, I mean, my dad pointed out to me last night. Actually, I'm going to read what my dad said because he had quite an insightful take.
Read it.
I said, what do you think about this right away last night when he said it? He goes, he's only 28 and a guy who was headed to be a star before the last 2 years. He'll be re-energized with Soto and a winning team. Acuna will steal a lot of bases if the Sox play him full-time, but he was not in the future plans here. Don't know a thing about the pitcher we gave up, which everybody's been saying. But I think that's a great point. I actually was reminded of the fact, for some reason in my head, Lou Bob was like 30, 31. I had no idea that he was still 28 years old. There is time here, and the bulk of his prime is left. Not to even mention, the Mets are taking on the $20 million this year. That's what they agreed to in the trade, to take on the bulk of his contract. He also has a $20 million club option for 2027 or a $2 million buyout. So all of a sudden, if he does have a bounce back year this year, this is a situation where the Mets could keep him into 2027. It's not necessarily a one-year deal.
100%. Feels like the Mets kind of have the upper hand here in some way, I would say, from a contract standpoint, which is always great. And listen, I still think that his AAV, when you look at some of his numbers, when you look at the highs and the lows that he has, when you look at some of the inconsistencies that he's had over the 2024 and 2025 season, it seems high. But then you remember that the Mets really didn't give up jack shit for him, and you feel better.
Yeah.
You feel like it's a lower risk situation, and you're not going to look back as a Mets fan and be like, oh, why did we give up somebody? And that's who you that's how you would have felt if they would have traded for him at the trade deadline. Is that what you were going to say?
Yes, and this is a guy the Mets have been linked to your point, at the trade deadline last year for a couple years now. The Mets have been in on Lou Bob. The White Sox sold low here because they're just trying to slough off payroll. They're not interested in spending any money over there in Chicago. I feel bad for White Sox fans sometimes. But this is a guy like the White Sox sold low on, but what I was going to say was the Jeff Passan tweet that came out last night, at first, for a couple of minutes, it said the New York Mets have acquired Luis Robert Jr. for 2 young players. And I just know that if you saw that before he said who it was, like I did, there was like 2 or 3 minutes in there before he revealed, I kind of was like, like, who is it? Is it Vientos? Is it Jonathan? Like, things could have gotten ugly there. I feel like from a standpoint of players that you don't want to give up. Then when I saw it was Acuna and a pitcher we've never heard of, I was like, well, I mean, steal of the century. Like, I'll take that 10 times out of 10.
A definite fleece in a way. And to your point, the 2 young players at the trade deadline, it would have been Jonathan. It would have been somebody substantial who, even if you got a good return, a few years down the line, you would have been just looking at Jonah Tong and feeling like, oh, that could have been a Mets guy. That could have been a Mets guy.
Shit.
So, in a way, for all of the heat that we've kind of thrown David Stern's way, this is his style. It's always going to be his style. He doesn't want to give a lot up. He sort of has a cheap mindset. And maybe in this particular trade, that was a good thing. Hasn't worked out every time, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work out this time. But again, look at what the Mets had before this, which wasn't much there. Tyrone Taylor was never really going to be your everyday player, and they needed somebody else in center field. Now they have him. I don't really see what's wrong with this trade at all.
Yeah, and even in a down year, in a bad 2025, guys still stole 33 bases, had a great OPS against lefty pitching, had 7 outs above average. He has value, even when he is sort of in these lesser years. But it is a gamble, right? Because if we're all of a sudden paying a guy $20 million a year and he goes out there and he has another bad season, you know what the outrage is going to be in New York. This is a gamble from David Stearns. But I guess my overall takeaway here in January is that it's one worth taking. There was Jeff Passan went on to actually reply to another reporter on Twitter that I thought was interesting. So the Mets, after all of this, after we've been sitting here saying they're not doing anything, have all of a sudden spent a sizable amount of money in the past 6 days, $146 million in the past 5 days with Bo Bichette and Luis Robert Jr. So they've shown the willingness to spend. But Jeff Passan replied to somebody else on Twitter basically saying, the first person was saying, if the Mets get a front of the rotation starter, they have had a really good offseason. And Passan responded to this reporter and said, this is correct. It's a deep lineup filled with guys who take professional at-bats. Robert was a perfect high-ceiling complement to the high-floor steadiness of Bichette, Polanco, and Simeon. And because of his defense in center field, Robert's floor isn't exactly low either. That's the other thing that you have to think about. Even if he doesn't quite give the lineup production that we are looking for, say he hits 18 home runs. All right, nobody's going to be wowed by that, especially when you know he has 38 home run potential. But if he goes out there and plays an elite center field, even near a Gold Glove caliber center field, that's something they didn't have before. Yeah, Tyrone Taylor does play a good defensive center field, but they never really had Tyrone Taylor factored into their plans as an everyday player because of what he lacks offensively. So Robert gives you that ceiling in terms of the lineup. You know the potential's there, and you know that you're going to get the defense, which David Stearns has stressed this entire offseason.
100%. I also think that it puts a different kind of spotlight on Troy Snicker, who the New York Mets hired to be their new hitting coach. That's a guy who previously served as a hitting coach for the Houston Astros from 2019 to 2025.
Oh, the Astros.
Won a World Series outside of the cheating scandal, outside of all of that jazz.
There was some drama.
But the point is, maybe that guy's role is a little enhanced now in the sense that he, to me, feels like a make or break piece as far as can you get a guy like Robert back to his hitting potential. To your point, I think the long story short is the ceiling's high and the floor feels high too. That's not a bad place to land if you're a New York Met.
And you know what else it provides you? The last, I feel like, positive piece to this is Carson Bench, a guy who they might think is center fielder of the future, really their homegrown, the guy they want to make into a star. This allows Bench to now either, one, start the season in Syracuse, depending on how spring training goes, or two, even if he does start up in New York, now he can play left field and have some of that pressure off of him. He's not out there commanding center field for the New York Mets off the rip. Start him in a corner outfield, let him get adjusted to New York, the bright lights, all of it, the hitting, and he doesn't have quite that pressure. I think if you're Carson Bench, this sounds appealing also, because it's not like they signed a guy who's going to be out there. It's not like they signed a center fielder to a 5-year deal and Carson Bench is all of a sudden like, well, shit, am I not in the future plans? You kind of know that this is a holdover. You know what I mean? This is a bridge to Carson Bench.
100%. You know who it doesn't look so good for, though?
Who?
Brett Beatty. I'm wondering what his role is because it's starting to feel like the lines are a little blurred. You know what I mean?
Brett's going to play left field until Carson comes knocking in about May or June.
Yes. And what's going to happen then, I'm not sure, but I just want everyone to know I'm thinking about him.
And then they're going to deal Brett at the trade deadline.
Because randomly he went from, he's their everyday third baseman, to jobless.
Yeah, Brett's had a bit of a fall from grace in the last few days. Not to even mention Vientos and Mauricio. Like, what are we doing here with everybody? But Brett in specific, things were looking better for Brett 5 days ago.
Is Tarek Skubal coming to New York?
I don't know. I hope so.
Like, come on. Come on. I know we'd have to give up a few things, but you wonder, right? You do wonder if they're in win now mode, which clearly they are. All right, we're going to move on from that forward now. Let us know in the comments how you feel about that trade. In other breaking news, Cody Bellinger is going back to the Yankees for 5 years and $162.5 million. There are opt-outs after the second and third season, a $20 million signing bonus, and a full no-trade clause. Expected, considering everything else that happened.
The Yankees and Cody Bellinger needed to make up, and they made up, okay? We knew that it was really that he was going back to the Yankees, I feel like. The Mets were interested, and according to reports, there were 2 other teams that were never specified. That feels like a Scott Boras. I'm just going to say something to say something. But you sort of felt the whole time like Bellinger was going to go back to the Yankees, especially when this news broke on the trade last night for Luis Robert Jr. to the Mets. Everybody was like, all right, Bellinger has to be a Yankee. I mean, I think it makes sense for them, right? They needed his bat. They needed his presence in the lineup. I think he would have made sense for the Mets, but not for what they're trying to do right now. He was really averse, and so was Boras, to kind of that 2-3 year Bo Bichette style deal. We'll give you, $40 million a year, but we're only going to sign you for 3 years with opt-outs. That's not what Cody Bellinger wanted, and that's fine. The Yankees were willing to give it. The Mets weren't. Do I think Cody Bellinger is a good player? Yes. Do I think he would have benefited the Mets? Also, yes. But do I think that the Yankees evidently, put on more of a full court press to bring him back and wanted him more? Yes, and that's also fine.
I'm going to be honest. They low-key needed a win. Actually, high-key needed a win.
Is he like the first major league player that they've signed this offseason? Like, I'm actually not doing a joke.
The Yankees have been quiet. Are they even breathing?
Silent.
Anymore?
Zilcho.
Do they have a pulse?
From the Yanks.
Bro, it's been bad. It's been really bad over there. Like, do something. Change something.
You're like knocking on the door of Yankee Stadium and you're like, hello, is anyone here?
Is anyone home? I have to say, obviously, Mets fans have been through a range of emotions, right? Like, I feel like we were sitting here however long ago and being like, oh, God, the entire team is changing. What the hell is going on here?
Sucks.
We're getting so much worse. Everyone's writing articles about it. But at least they were trying. They were trying to move around. They were trying to shake things up.
You know what there was? There was concepts of a plan.
Concepts of a plan, which is better than no plan at all, right? Point is, that's what's happening with the Yankees. And I was going to say good luck to the Yankees, but we both know I wouldn't mean it.
Nope.
Good luck to Cody Bellinger, though. Hope that works out for him. One other thing we wanted to discuss with y'all. Bo Bichette, okay? He was introduced today as a New York Met. Some Blue Jays fans said it didn't look right. I thought he looked great in blue and orange. I have to say, he was looking mighty good in those colors.
I'm not into Bo Bichette. That is not what I'm saying.
She didn't say that.
I'm into Bo
Relax.
Bichette becoming a Met. I like what I'm seeing from the press conferences.
100% I agree. And let's talk about some things that he said before things get out of hand in the comments. Bo Bichette said some really actually intriguing, exciting things that I think are going to make a lot of fans very happy.
I agree.
He said, one thing that I liked is that it was unbelievable that fans hold you to a high standard. I'm excited to meet that standard to try and help this team win a World Series. He also said, when I landed, I looked around and saw the city and it hit a little bit different than it does when you come as a road player. 2 immediate things stick out to me. Number 1, he has a championship mindset. That is exactly what you want for a team like the New York Mets. Number 2, he looks around at a big city. He looks around at the bright lights. He feels nothing but excitement. I really like what I'm seeing from those 2 quotes.
Yeah, he also said, quote, I'm going to be playing in front of fans who hold their players to a high standard. I'm excited to meet that standard.
That's what I just said.
Bo Bichette. Oh, you said that? Mm-hmm. Oh, I think Bo Bichette is, part of the quote that was helping win a World Series. Got it. I think Bo Bichette is a good fit in New York. I mean, obviously we could take this all back in June and maybe he's not hitting and the pressure's too much and he gets in a brawl with the media. Who's to say how these things are going to play out? In January, this is really just all speculation. But I think the initial signs on Bo Bichette is that he's quite happy to be a New York Met. And whenever you bring someone in like that to your team, even if it ends up being for a year, which essentially is what this contract is, you feel good about that, right? This is a guy that's now going to be in the clubhouse all year long with a winning mindset that's going to appreciate the fans and that's going to really, I guess, treat I'm trying to figure out how to word this, treat playing in New York appropriately, if that makes sense. Like, I think Bo Bichette recognizes kind of the value and the intensity that New York fans have for the Mets or the Yankees. And I think when you have a player that kind of recognizes that value, he's going to treat it a little more carefully, if that makes sense.
I love the idea that there's a player who's coming from a championship caliber team.
That too.
That's just what you want, right? You want somebody who just truly barely missed that taste of what that felt like to be a World Series champion. I mean, you were how close if y'all watched that game. Just very exciting game. Quite close, right? So to know that he's somebody who is coming from that means that that's what he's chasing. He's also somebody who I think was a leader and very, very well liked as far as Blue Jays fans, as far as in the clubhouse, all of these kinds of things are the kinds of things that you wanted to be seeing for the Mets this offseason. No one is sitting here saying that everything's going to work out great. No one is sitting here saying that the team is surefire going to be better this year than they were last year. But what you can say with certainty is that last year, something was wrong. And it needed to be changed, and it felt like at least a part of it had to deal with the culture. They're doing what they can to change that now. And I appreciate that because you know I'm a big believer in the fact that change doesn't happen unless change happens. They are at least doing what they can to shuffle a few things up here. David Stearns also got a chance to speak today, so I think that's worth pointing out. When talking about Lou Bob, he said all of those skills and tools that allowed him to perform at such a high level a couple of years ago are still there. So Stearns is believing in the potential that he already saw, is believing in Lou Bob's ability to be able to take those skills from 2023 and replicate them in 2026.
Yeah, again, I mean, the guy's 28 years old. That's certainly too early to give up on a guy who has the ceiling that he might have. You bring up Stearns talking today. He talked about a few different topics. The last thing that I thought was rather interesting, he talked to Steve Gelbs on the Mets' pursuit for a starting pitcher. He said, quote, "My preference is to add a starting pitcher. I've been open and honest about that through the entirety of the offseason. I can't say with certainty we're going to be able to do that, but we remain engaged on a number of different fronts in that market. We've still got plenty of time to go, plenty of time before opening day. We'll see where it heads." You know, David Stearns likes to keep his cards close to his chest. We know this at this point. There had been other rumors. The reason why I bring up the quote on a starting pitcher was because there have been other things coming out today. Will Salmon, who has been really hitting on a lot of things this offseason. Like, if you want a reputable source in this whole mix, look at Will Salmon.
Seal clap for Will Salmon. He's done a very good job. Yeah. I totally agree.
Will Salmon said today, there may be a slightly higher likelihood of the Mets trading for a starter than signing one in free agency. They remain in contact with the Brewers about Freddy Peralta. Then something else came out from a guy, Michael Marino, that Jonah Tong's name came up in talks with the Brewers about Freddy Peralta before the Mets, quote, quickly ended that discussion. The Mets are not interested in parting ways with Jonah Tong. The Brewers have since submitted an offer, Brandon Sproat and Jet Williams for Freddy. The Mets have been unwilling to pay that price. I don't know what you think about this. Brandon Sproat and Jet Williams, I don't hate it. I don't love it for Freddy Peralta, especially if he's a one-year rental. I think if I were to give up Sproat and Williams, I would want to do so with the knowledge that maybe he's open to an extension in New York, and that becomes a trade where, yeah, we bring him in and he has 1 year left, but then we sign him for the future. Then I would maybe consider Sproat and Jet Williams. I'm not completely opposed to that idea.
Honestly, it's rare that I say this, but I have to think about it more. I don't know how I feel about that yet. I would need to sit on that for a few days, get back to you,
circle back
next episode. So let me circle back.
I'm not
on
into
that.
it for 1 year. But again, if the potential for an extension was there, maybe I'm into it.
And I get what you mean because, again, if you're in win now mode, you may as well go all in. To me, going all in looks like they need a starting pitcher badly. So that is definitely something worth considering. Last thing coming out of this press conference today, Carlos Mendoza also spoke. And he was asked if he's changing anything in his approach after the Mets fell short of expectations last season. He said, "You have to. I had a lot of time to reflect after the season was over. You look back and you're not going to be the same guy. There's room for improvement, whether it's communication, whether it's explaining roles, whether it's using your coaching staff. A lot of different ways that I have to be better and you learn from it." Really, really like the part at the end where he said whether it's using your coaching staff. reading between the lines, that strikes me as him saying, I need to let go of a little bit of control and use some of the guys on my staff for the things that they're good at or for the things that they maybe have a little bit more knowledge about than I do. I like the idea of having a coaching staff where everybody knows their roles and is being utilized for them.
Yeah, I hesitate to even get too far down this road in January, but I think Carlos Mendoza knows what's up, if you know what I mean. Carlos Mendoza does not have a lifetime contract here. He's certainly had significant success in his first season as manager. But if the Mets underwhelm again this year, if that were to be how things play out, Carlos Mendoza's seat's going to get warm. So I know that Carlos Mendoza knows that there are expectations this season, especially now with some of the free agents that they are signing. They did not go down they did not take the left turn that we were debating if they were going to take a few weeks ago. Are we just going to kind of punt, let the kids play in 2026? No. The answer to that is no. They spent $146 million in 5 days. So that is going to translate to Carlos Mendoza, again, having those expectations. Again, I'm not saying that they have to go to the NLCS or it's a failure, but you're going to need to see significant growth and improvement in order for things to be good in Carlos Mendoza's world.
You're going to need to see a playoff team here.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, last year we were like World Series or bust.
That was
and
ridiculous.
here we are
Why
still
did
at
we
this
say
table.
that?
Somebody
We're talking
clip
about
that
the
bullshit.
Mets.
Somebody clip that piece of work.
Jesus.
But the point is, I would sit here now and tell you that it really is playoff or bust at least.
And I'd
for
say
fuck's
preferably
sake.
not playing in a 3-game wild card series,
I'm
but
not gonna-
be careful what you wish for.
It's beneath me to say wild card or bust.
right,
I'm not
all
going
right.
to say that. I
Okay.
know what you mean completely.
All right.
Hey, last thing I wanted to point out, the Mets are also signing right-handed pitcher Luis Garcia to a deal, according to Joel Sherman. He's 38 years old. He had a 3.42 ERA in 58 games pitched last season with the Dodgers, Nationals, and Angels. Has a career 4.07 ERA in 603 appearances. All I keep on seeing from people who are responding on Twitter just say solid depth piece. I'm not sure exactly what there is to say beyond that. Dodgers fans, let us know what you saw. Let us know what's interesting.
Yeah, he's a journeyman. I mean, kind of the definition of a journeyman. But and he's certainly, obviously, 38 years old. Might be singing some of our last songs here. But I don't.
That's so funny.
I don't think it's a bad. I mean, we'll see what he brings. I don't know. They need depth in the bullpen, so we'll see what ends up happening. But I'm excited about nothing else other than the hot stove is hot now. Like we were really not, there was really not much of a flame for weeks, months in Mets world and in some other worlds. Throughout baseball, it felt like this was a slow burn this offseason. So I am happy that the stove is up to temperature and I'm getting ready to go on spring training. I would like a starting pitcher, but
that is such a beautifully worded sentiment, to be honest, because I agree with you. There was simmering for many, many months. We are trying to come up with really catchy titles, but I feel like at some point we were kind of talking about the same thing.
There was a couple weeks around Christmas where we were like, what the hell do we talk about? Like, genuinely.
Now, it's like, you ever been to hibachi? They're making it right in front of you. It's that moment where that flame really goes up and your hair kind of whips back a little bit. Mm-hmm. I like that moment. I'm liking feeling the heat right now, especially in such a cold time. It is so cold in Syracuse, you guys. I just need all you guys on the West Coast to know that. It's supposed to be hitting negative numbers up in this bitch. I saw a TikTok today that said, if the degrees, whatever it is outside, if that number is lower than my age, don't invite me anywhere. So motherfucking true.
That is so true.
I'm out. Don't invite me. Don't call me.
And there's supposed to be another snowstorm, and it's just, we're really in the trenches, so I need baseball hot stove to distract me from the fact that we live in the snowiest city in America. And you know what? As my closing thought on that topic, it amazes me year in and year out. You will probably see my ass at opening day for the Syracuse Mets. They put on a production there. Sure, there are plenty of cold weather, minor league markets. But them playing baseball here in Syracuse in April is something. Because if you're from Syracuse and if you're from upstate New York, you know that you're not really safe in terms of warm weather around here until May. April can be dicey. And that is, I mean, I imagine our West Coast fans can only marvel at that. But April, you are not out of the blue. There might be a snowstorm. So the fact that the Syracuse Mets go out there and play baseball in April is certainly something.
My birthday is April 22nd, and I am sad to announce that I have spent some of my birthdays here in a legitimate snowstorm. Not a joke at all.
On April 22nd.
April 22nd birthday. I'm telling you, it has been snowy outside for some of those. Sometimes not, but never like warm yet. And actually, even May, you could be halfway through May and staring down like a
You're not safe
40.
till Memorial Day. You're really not.
That's pretty much what I would call it. There are 4 seasons here, to quote MK, and 2 of them are winter. That's what it is.
That's
right?
a good quote.
Banger.
Heater.
2 of them are winter, 1 of them is summer, and 1 of them is fall. And the summer and fall seasons are absolutely incredible. But the 2 winters, you can't lifetime sign me up for that. And that's ultimately, more than anything, the reason at some point I'll be leaving this place.
Yeah, I mean, well, nobody's interested in this discussion about the upstate New York climate, but just to let everybody know, fall up here is delightful. Like, if you get a chance to go to upstate New York, Adirondack area, see, like, fall is wonderful and actually lasts. So my birthday's in October, early October. And it is usually still very warm, like 70 degrees on like first week of October. Like, I usually have a great time. It's usually warm here through Halloween, even into November. It lasts longer on the fall side, I guess is what I'm saying. But the spring, there's no hope until May.
There is no spring here, and it's some bullshit. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. You all just have a wonderful week. Go get them. We'll see you back here when the next big thing happens.